So we are in our Caridina rack, which has 96 tanks dedicated to shrimp. And we got some cool shrimp down here. But today we're actually not focused on the shrimp. What we're focused on is the filtration in these tanks. And we want to show you what we do for Caridina and also what we do for Neocaridina. It's a little different. We have a reason why. And today it's all about filtration. Let's jump right into the video. Guys, it is Saturday, which can only mean one thing. It is Shrimp Saturday. And so today we're talking all about filtration, and I just want to show you, this is our room of Neocaridina. I believe there's roughly like 60 IBC totes in here. They all have about 200 gallons a piece in it. And you can see, like, we got some green water growing. We got some tannin water. We got some clear water. But the thing that we're talking about is the filtration in these guys and how we use filtration to make sure we are successful here at Flipaquatics. And hopefully you guys can pick up on some tips that can make you successful at home. So let's get right into today's video and teach you guys all about what we do for filtration. So I figured we might as well start with one of my favorite types of shrimp and my favorite type of filtration. So if you look down in this tank, this is actually blue bolts. And these guys are just absolutely gorgeous. This is our regular grade. Now, granted, there's some mixtures in there. Like, you can see the ones that are more blue would be like extreme blue bolts. Ones that are mostly blue would be obviously mostly blue bolts. But the thing that I really want to point out on this tank is this huge piece of foam. This is a piece of foam that is made for underwater use, and it literally divides the tank. So the back side of the tank actually has what is called a lift tube. You can see the air lines coming down in the back. And that air line goes to like where it's about 3 inches from the bottom. And then it uses air to go up and over and force water back into the tank. So it's literally an L shape upside down. And then air is forced up and over, which takes water with it. So all you're doing is using air to move water. And you can just see how many shrimp are on this Matten filter. And they're just grazing. It's a natural place where they can find food, find organics. And I would say a third of the shrimp population is on the Matten filter. So the more surface area in an aquarium, the better off you are. So like Matten filters, while they're a little unsightly, this would be what I would consider an unsightly one. It's sitting on the side of the tank. And so you can easily see it when you're looking at it from the front. But they're extremely, extremely effective. So I will show you another situation where we use these in a very like sleek way. That I think actually makes the appearance of your tank better than something like this. So let's go show you that, and I'll talk more about the benefits of using the Matten filter. So right here, we're looking at some of our gallery tanks that we have plans on breeding some really cool stuff in. We just haven't got around to it yet. And so this is an example of using a Matten filter in what I consider a very sleek way. You look in this tank and you just see a black background, and really we custom cut the Matten filters to fill the whole back of the tank, and then we cut the lift tube. But like, you can see like how natural this looks. Like, there's a bunch of little plants growing up here, and this just becomes like a really good beneficial bacteria area, a place for organics to grow, so on and so forth. And so like, these filters are just super effective. The only downside to these guys, and this is the only thing that I don't like about them, is the fact that you have to clean them. Now, to clean this thing, you literally have to take the whole thing out. You have to rinse it off, scrub it out, all that kind of stuff, and then put it back in. So it's not the most ideal thing, but the good news is for fish, we do it about once a year. For shrimp, we do it about once every year and a half, 2 years. If we have an import that is coming in and we sold the shrimp out of it, then we might clean it when we bring in a new import. But like, if you were actually breeding fish, you could take this out whenever you don't have a lot of babies, clean it then, put it back in, catch the fish from out behind it, and then you're good to go. So it's a little bit more inconvenient, but what you get out of it is super worth it in my opinion. So that's why this is my #1 filtration. And like, even on tanks like the 300 gallon over here and the 400 gallon, in the refugium, which is just like a big tank that sits below these, and then water overflows down in it, and then a circulation pump pumps it back up to the main tank. We have Matten filters in those to build live colonies of beneficial bacteria. So we are technically using Matten filters in all the tanks up here because I love it so much. But you know, there is the cleaning aspect. So as long as you can get past the cleaning aspect and the way they look, then it is, in my opinion, the best, cheapest filtration that you can get. There are some other types of filtration that I really like, and that's where we'll go take a look at our Neocaridina room and see what we're doing there. So now we are down in our cherry shrimp row, and we have, I think, 11 tanks here. And I want to show you, so like, obviously we can't cut a Matten filter for a tank that is this size. Like it would just be, it'd be literally the biggest Matten filter you've ever seen. It would cost about $10 billion, not actually, but it would cost a lot of money. And I don't think it would really fit good on the sides. And it would suck up so much surface area in the tank. So instead of doing that, what we did, and I'll show you a tank that I already turned off. This is kind of what we're going for. In these tanks, we use a 6x6 6x6x6 sponge filter, and we actually just go to Menards or Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever you use, and get a porcelain tile and then silicone that right to the sponge, and then we drill a hole in it. And I'll actually take you up after we're done in this room and show you how we drill our Matten filters and also our sponge filters. I'll show you what our lift tubes look like taken apart, so you can have all the details if you wanted to custom make one at home, or you can order one from us, whatever you want to do. But we just glue the tile to the bottom of it with aquarium safe silicone, and then we just put a piece of 3/4 inch PVC down in there for ones this size. The other ones, like we're using a 4x4x4 cube, we'll do 1.5 inch PVC. And then I'll show you all these details outside the tank, but this at least gives you basically what a tank would look like, and kind of like how we set it up. But we use sponge filters in these ones simply because Matten filters aren't economical. And these guys, the nice thing about sponge filters is you literally can pull them out of the tank. If they're dirty, you squeeze them out a couple times, put them right back in the tank. They're much easier to clean. They just don't have the surface area. So like even in here, you see the majority of the babies that I see in this tank on the filter, and also a decent amount of shrimp. So obviously it's a good place to hang out, good place to get a bite to eat, because that's where they're all congregating. So I was wrong. We actually use 1 inch PVC, and then we use 3/4 inch for the 4x4x4 cube. So we drilled about 1/3 of the way up on one side. Now, most people would think like, oh, then you put it down here like this, and then, you know, it's up here. It's actually wrong. So you don't want to just push the PVC all the way down in there, because then what that does is it makes only the bottom where it's sucking water from. So you actually want to turn it this way, and you put it down in there where like the airline would just barely be touching the sponge. And then what that does is it leaves the bottom open, which lets there be more water, and it makes more of the sponge actually work. So again, we just have these like 6x6 regular standard tiles. We silicone it down, and then we drill a hole all the way through the sponge filter until it hits the bottom, pull that core out. And again, I'll show you what we use. But this is, I would guess if that's 6 inches, this is probably 10 inches is what we're using. So like 4 inches bigger than the sponge. If you only have a 4-inch sponge, you might go 2 inches higher or something like that. It really doesn't matter. So like, don't get lost in the details. But this is a very cost-effective sponge filter that you can make yourself. And I guess if you were ever interested, we could probably get these custom cut for you and send them your way. Again, they're really not super expensive. The expensive part would be shipping the tile, because they're easy to break, and they're a little heavy. So that's what a sponge filter looks like. Let's go upstairs and I'll show you more about the Matten filter and how that works and how we drill them. So now we're up in our shipping room. This is how our Matten filters come. And we actually sell these as tank dividers. They're definitely cheaper. And the reason being is we don't have to cut them. We don't have to put the lift tube in there. And so this is what our standard Matten filter would look like. Then what we do, I'm on a breath for walking up those steps. We actually have a little jig made, and it has the hole centered, and then you just slide this thing down in, and obviously that was the wrong way, so it wouldn't let me do it. Push it down in there, and then now your hole's perfect. And how we made this is we just took like a normal drill bit. You don't have to do this, but we welded it onto a drill bit. And then this is just EMT, so electrical conduit. And then we grind on the edge, and it's not like sharp, like you can't cut yourself, but when you spin it, it will easily cut a hole through this. So then all we would do is just turn this on full blast, push it all the way through, boom, cut your hole, and you're good to go. So that's how we actually cut it. Like you could sit here and like eye it up and like hold this blade still and then cut it that way. It's just, you're not going to get a perfect cut anytime. And so like, we know that our customers want it to be perfectly centered, look good. And so that's why we use this. You don't have to make something like this. You can just do it freehand. I used to do that all the time. You could even make a template. We used to have these templates like this. This is the size of our 55 gallon, and you put it on there. And as long as it's even on both sides, then you can easily just cut the hole. So things like that would work really easy. And those are all really easy DIY options. But when it's all said and done, this is how it should look right here. Now, another thing to consider, obviously, when you look at this type of foam, they look different. And obviously the color's different, but really the big difference here is this is 35 to 40 PPI, and this is only 20 PPI. So PPI stands for pores per inch. This one being 20 PPI is really good for fish. It's not good for shrimp. And the reason being is the babies can actually crawl in here and get stuck. And then you don't really know if like, hey, are they coming out? Are they not coming out? And so this is a really good one for fish because it's not going to clog as easy. They're not going to get stuck in there. And so the smaller the PPI, the more it's made for larger fish. So like if you did like a 10 PPI, I would say, hey, that might be good for like Oscars, Pacus, things like that. Where like 20 PPI is really good for a nanofish colony. And then 35 to 40 PPI is really good for your shrimp and like things that have really tiny babies. And then let me show you the lift tube. So again, it has 3 components, and this is one of the components. Like this is called like the actual tube. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's the piece that comes out of the filter that will shine in the tank. So one way to do it is the way we do it. And I'm actually thinking about switching this because like, I don't think that's the most sightly thing in the world. I kind of like when it's flush. And there's really, we just did this to make it look nice, but I think if it's flush, it looks better and it really doesn't impact the flow of water or anything like that. So I would actually cut it flush. On the back side, you have the elbow, and we always use thin wall too. You don't want to use regular wall because it will restrict the amount of water. So thin wall PVC, and this is just make sure 3/4 inch. We drill the hole about, I want to say again, 1/3 of the way down from the top. And then you want to get the air line to where it's right at the bottom. You don't want to take it too low because then the air will come out. It will stop the flow. It won't be good. And a lot of times you'll push it in there and the airline actually goes up, and that's not good either. So you always want to look down in there, make sure that you see the airline getting to the bottom, make sure there's no kinks in it. And that is how you do a lift tube. Hopefully that gave you guys a pretty good overview and hopefully encourage you to try Matten Filters for yourself. And you can even use this as a tank divider, like I said. You can use a little power filter that sits behind it that pumps water across. Like there's a lot of ways that you can utilize this. You can even reach out to us and we can order you a custom piece of foam to fit the whole back of your tank. Anything that you want, we're more than willing to help you guys. But that is filtration, and that's what we use here at Flipaquatics. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little Shrimp Saturday spiel. You guys make it a great rest of your week. As always, God bless. We'll catch you on the flip side.